Support the Duck Lord by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Ready? On to the show. Star Wars: A New Hope, the beloved sci-fi classic where a creepy old desert hermit lures a naive water farmer into a violent crusade against a disabled war veteran, who along the way idolizes a smuggler with questionable morals, develops a crush on his own sister, and ultimately follows the path the desert hermit laid out for him, blowing up a government facility full of people just doing their jobs. Truly an inspiring story about how a little manipulation and some vague philosophy can turn any naive kid into a hero, all while a sassy trash can and his flamboyant golden companion provide comic relief. Obi-Wan Kenobi, a creepy old hermit who has spent the last 20 years lurking in the desert waiting for the perfect moment to whisper sweet nothings about destiny into young Luke's ear. Conveniently leaves out the part where Luke's dad was not a noble warrior but actually the Emperor's personal attack dog with a raging case of asthma. Instead, Obi-Wan hands Luke a glowing rod of death and basically says,
"Have you ever thought about anti-fascist terrorism? Luke, did you ever hang around the gymnasium? Have you ever seen a grown Jedi naked?"
Luke Skywalker is just your average, naive, whiny moisture farm boy. He whines about not going to Toshi Station.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
He whines about the Empire. He whines about training too hard. He whines about his dead mentor. The one time he doesn't whine, when he finds the charred remains of his aunt and uncle burned to a crisp like overdone barbecue.
Well, looks like that happened.
Honestly, the Force should have ghosted him. Instead, he gets radicalized by an old wizard, joins a cult, and despite having zero combat experience outside of shooting desert rats for fun, is blowing up a moon-sized base filled with unsuspecting stormtroopers, clerks, interns, janitors, you know, just average people trying to make ends meet. It's a real hero's journey. Princess Leia, the strong female character before it had a name. She's a badass, but she spends half the movie being a space Karen.
The Imperial Senate will not sit still for this. When they hear you've attacked a diplomatic...
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission this time. Several transmissions were beamed to the ship by rebel spies.
I want to speak to your manager.
And the other half roasting everyone around her. Within 5 minutes of meeting people, she's demanding answers, yelling at everyone, and somehow always in charge, even when she's in a prison cell. Also, thanks to George Lucas's weird rules, Leia canonically doesn't wear underwear in space because space bras don't exist. The 77 Star Wars tagline should have been, "In space. Everyone can see you jiggle." Han Solo, the resident space trucker, scoundrel, and galactic smuggler. Han is the kind of guy who would charge you for a ride to the hospital after running you over. He's all about the Benjamins.
If there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe anything you say.
Han Solo only fights for one thing. Money. Yeah, he'll swoop in to save the day, but he'll swoop even faster if there's money involved. And when you've got a 7-foot-tall bear dog as your co-pilot, you can afford to be a little reckless. C-3PO and R2-D2. They have the purest form of old married couple energy, and I refuse to see it any other way. From the moment they escape the exploding spaceship, they're bickering non-stop like two retirees lost on a road trip with no GPS. 3PO is the dramatic, nagging partner who complains about everything, while R2 just passive-aggressively beeps, insults, and rolls away to do something actually useful. They break up in the desert only to get kidnapped together, because the universe knows these two can't function apart. Later, when R2 gets fried, 3PO has an actual emotional breakdown, offering up his own parts to save his beep-booping life partner. Face it, this isn't just friendship, this is a lifelong bicker-filled space marriage, and it's more romantic than half the actual love stories in Star Wars. Darth Vader, the Sith Lord with a robot body that's basically a walking life support machine powered by hatred and regret. Let's not forget the real reason he's so angry. His lower half is toast. He went from being the Jedi's golden boy to a Sith Lord with a melted bratwurst where his manhood used to be, and honestly, that would make anyone cranky. The movie starts with Darth Vader showing up and immediately setting the record for best on-screen entrance ever. He strangles a guy, takes over a ship, and generally acts like the office manager from hell. The Lars family dinner, an essential part of Star Wars history that reminds us that, across the galaxy, family meals are never peaceful. In cinema, dinner is where dreams die a slow death. Luke whines about Tosche Station, power converters, and academies. And Owen basically tells Luke,
"Shut up and farm water."
Let's face it, no one in Star Wars ever has a nice meal. The closest we get is Darth Vader being honored to have Han and Leia join them for dinner in The Empire Strikes Back, but even that turns into a torture session 5 minutes later. Cut to Luke Skywalker. Him staring at the binary sunset is the ultimate teenage boy allegory. Gazing longingly at something just out of reach, filled with dreams, frustration, and an unshakable sense that there's something more out there. Much like a hormonal 17-year-old contemplating the mysteries of the female form, Luke doesn't fully understand what he's yearning for, but he knows it's important.
The twin suns, a perfect metaphor. Two celestial orbs glowing in the distance, powerful yet unattainable. It rhymes.
It fills him with equal parts wonder and existential dread. It's the most poetic thirst trap in science fiction history. Enter Obi-Wan Kenobi, a retired space wizard who's been living as Ben because apparently the Empire can't Google. Luke and Obi-Wan head to a wretched hive of scum and villainy. Of course, he's talking about Mos Eisley, but could just as easily be talking about Walmart. Because, let's be honest, if everyone in a Walmart was armed, I'm just saying. They find Han Solo, a space truck driver whose entire personality is man who definitely has warrants out for his arrest. Han and Obi-Wan negotiate a deal to fly to Alderaan, while Luke's contribution to the conversation is more whining, so they agree to fly the Millennium Falcon, a freighter held together by duct tape, desperation, and a prayer. Our heroes find an asteroid field where an expected planet used to be. Guess they were looking in. Alderaan Places. Alderaan is like a Disney Plus show audience. It's just not there. Sorry, Bale. Our heroes eventually make it onto the Death Star where Leia is being held. When the boys arrive to rescue her, Leia is all like,
Too little short for a stormtrooper.
and Luke is all like,
I was in the pool!
Leia, unimpressed with her would-be rescuers, takes one look at Han's nonsense and realizes she has to be the adult here. She grabs a blaster, shoots a hole in the floor, and jumps into a garbage chute, because when faced with two morons in a hallway full of enemies, dumpster diving is the better option. Everyone follows, only to land in Star Wars' most unnecessary nightmare, a trash compactor with a surprise sea monster. After some tense screaming, button mashing, and R2 saving their butts from a control room somewhere, they escape, filthy, annoyed, and somehow still arguing. Leia is now 100% sure she's surrounded by idiots. Han is still flirting badly, and Luke? Luke surprisingly isn't whining at the moment. Obi-Wan and Vader have a lightsaber battle so slow, it looks like two elderly men fighting over the last tapioca pudding at a retirement home. These guys used to be flipping over lava pits and pulling off anime-level lightsaber moves, but now they're just slowly waving their laser canes at each other like two grumpy grandpas settling a bingo hall dispute. The Battle of Yavin is basically the galaxy's most high-stakes one-night stand. First, you've got the rebel pilots nervously circling the Death Star like a bunch of teenage boys eyeing the hot girl on prom night, each one hoping they can find the right spot. The tension is high and everyone's sweaty in their cockpits. The Empire, meanwhile, is playing hard to get, swatting away the rebels' would-be advances. But the rebels keep coming, dodging, weaving, trying to line up the perfect shot, because, let's face it, no one wants to be the guy who fires too early and misses the mark. Luke, fresh-faced and wide-eyed, stepping up for his first big moment, and Obi-Wan, ghostly, groomy, and wise, is whispering sweet motivational nothings in his ear. Use the Force, Luke. Let go. And oh, does he let go. With one smooth, perfectly timed shot, he lands that torpedo right in the Death Star's tight little exposed port. One explosion later, the Death Star is spent. The rebels are cheering, and Luke is basking in the glow of a job well done. Now that's what I call a happy ending. And just like that, Luke's no longer a whiny boy, he was a whiny man. The story concludes with Luke and Han getting shiny medals for saving the day, while Leia doesn't get nearly enough credit for carrying this mission. And Chewbacca? No medal, just vibes. So, What have we learned? This entire movie is about a desert hobo radicalizing a whiny space farmer into committing mass murder, a space trucker committing intergalactic tax fraud, and a cyborg with serious emotional issues fueled by hate and firmware updates. It's messy, it's ridiculous, and it's one of the greatest movies ever made. 5 stars out of 5. Why? Because the Force compels me. And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It's the digital equivalent of a high five, and who doesn't love a good high five? See you next time.